Well, good evening. We finally come to you live, the show, the slate. See, folks, Tom Brady just doing Brady-like things in the last Madden sim. So you want to blame someone, blame Tom Brady. And the virtual Bucks for getting us up on the air late. Jeff Ulrich and Matt LaMarca in tonight. Brendan Glasheen. We've got like 20 minutes to talk some football and some other fiery takes here as the night begins on this Tuesday. We won't waste any time. I've got the lines pulled up here, the DraftKings Sportsbook for the 6 Super Wildcard Weekend games. And we've also got the DFS contest pulled up, so we can go in any direction you fellas want to go in for the next 18 minutes. But Jeff, I know we talked last night. There's some changes here. No real news. Some updates on the Chargers and their injury situation. Still really no word on Lamar Jackson. We'll find out if he's going to practice this week. That's yet to be found out. We'll probably find out that stuff more so tomorrow, later in the week. LaMarca, where are you at, though, on these games? What's a game that jumps out to you most, one you're targeting most? Where would you like to go?
So, yeah, we've definitely seen some early movement here, which has cost us a couple of key numbers, particularly the Bucks dropping down from 3 to 2.5, I think is a big move to start the week. Sharps like the Bucks. I definitely like the Bucks getting a field goal, but at that number, it's much harder to trust them. I think, at this point, just hold out and hope that 3 pops back up at some point. So right now, my favorite game is probably the Jaguars getting a point as home underdogs against the Chargers. I think the Jaguars are actually a pretty good team. They had some unfortunate losses early in the year that put them, behind the 8 ball from a record perspective. But if you look at like their expected win total versus the Chargers expected win total, it's higher. If you look at something like Football Outsiders DVOA, it prefers the Jaguars to the Chargers. I don't see a ton separating Justin Herbert and Trevor Lawrence with the way that Lawrence played down the stretch. So I think the Jaguars are the better team here. I would have them favored in this matchup. And catching 1 point as an underdog, like it doesn't really make a huge difference. They're still going to need to win the game because obviously you can't tie in the postseason. But I think the Jaguars are not getting enough credit here.
So you're using the +1 just to protect yourself if they lose by 1.
Yeah, I mean, take them on the money line, and you can save 5 cents. Like that's probably what I would do. I don't necessarily need the +1, but I just think that the Jags are the better team. They're the best value at the moment.
Okay, good stuff. The latest update: Brandon Staley said Joey Bosa will participate in full in practice tomorrow. Mike Williams, though, not so great news. Or yet to get a really solid update on him. Jeff, where are you at based on our conversation from yesterday, maybe this morning? What's the latest temperature for you on these games?
Yeah, I'm pretty much with LaMarca on the Jaguars, so I won't go into that too much. Again, I talked about this a little bit more in the morning. Doug Peterson versus Brandon Staley right now. I mean, I think that like you've got to look at these coaching matchups and how the teams are coming in. Staley creating a negative atmosphere with playing the starters and then losing to Denver and injuring people. Doug Peterson, the ultimate players coach. Like I think the Jags got over their really tough hurdle in Tennessee. I think they're the team playing with house money here. I don't know. I mean, this line deserves to be close, but I agree. Like I think there's value in just taking the plus money with the Jags to win the money line. I mean, just win straight up. Like the Chargers they're nice on paper. The idea of betting the Chargers is always better than actually betting the Chargers. So let's leave it at that. I am against the market though with the Cowboys. I actually am really happy that line dropped under 3. I think the Cowboys are the vastly superior team here. A little bit of late season, slide, sure. Their pass defense, a little bit of issues. They also have really solid pressure rate. I think that there's some really I think CeeDee Lamb and Dalton Schultz are in really good spots here against like just a secondary of the Bucks that just really. No standouts, kind of mediocre, and they were kind of exploited at times in the year. So maybe I shouldn't be too up on this, but I think that what we've got here is like a buying opportunity. Personally, I think if the Cowboys had just beaten the Commanders last week in any kind of fashion, this line could have been like 3.5, 4 even.
Yep.
And if they'd beaten them convincingly, it could have been 4. But we had the other scenario where the Cowboys lost a meaningless game, and then the Bucks had like one big outbreak at like the perfect time to make this number, dip under 3. The Bucks offense this year has just been, it's terrific. Like Brady is getting rid of the ball at an obscenely fast rate because he doesn't want to get hit, and it's just he's missing throws. And I just think the Cowboys defense probably takes a step up here. They got embarrassed last week. I think this is a game that it's very winnable for them, and I think they will go out and win it. I don't know about long term here if I want to back them for like the Super Bowl or anything, but for one game, I will definitely take the under 3 for Dallas in this matchup.
Yeah, watching Brady this year not getting rid of the ball quickly, part of me thinks, and I don't think it, but part of me wonders if he's thinking it. All right, let's save the hits for the playoffs. But how could he run that risk when his team just got in as of week 17? Part of me thinks that there's some truth to that.
But they've had O-line issues all year, so it's from training camp on. It's an interesting matchup because the Bucks are kind of still, the unknown. They were really solid team last couple of years, but like they just haven't been up to that standard. I think Dallas is kind of like the Chargers. I mean, like if they play up to their potential, they can beat anyone. They can also lose to the Commanders and Sam Howell in his first NFL start. So it's but at under 3, like I'll go against the Bucks here.
Okay.
Yeah, I think.
Go ahead.
Go ahead,
Jeff. Lamar.
This obviously being a playoff game, right? Like this is a big spot for Dak Prescott. He's 1-3 in the playoffs in his career. His one win came by 2 points. Now he's got to go on the road and beat the greatest quarterback that's ever lived. Like Tom Brady's pulse, does it even get slightly elevated for a wild card game against Dallas? Like probably not, right? So I've been impressed with how he has played the last 2 weeks. And you know what? Like I do think that if this was a regular season game, I would probably lean towards the Cowboys at less than a field goal. I just think that they have all the pressure on them right now. And I'm not really that confident that they're going to cope with it.
It's a good point. The narrative of pressure is on Dallas, no question. Brady won his Super Bowl without Belichick, and he won his Super Bowl in Tampa.
Right, they're already talking about where he's going to play next year. Like they don't seem to care about the fact that the Bucks are in the playoffs right now.
I mean, let's be honest, Lamarca, they've been talking about that since the season even started. The Sean Payton news, is he going to Miami? And then they got into some trouble the Dolphins got into some trouble for tampering. They basically admitted it, all parties. Brady never talked about it publicly, but he shied away from it because I think he knew he was guilty. What I fear about the Bucks, though, Lamarca, is the stat on Brady becomes very public that he is 7-0. There's no way this could get to 2, right? Possibly if the money keeps coming in on Tampa.
I mean, once you're under 3, it doesn't really matter.
You're right. I know that's true. Okay.
But yeah, there are all the great Tom Brady trends, and as we saw for most of this season, they don't really apply anymore. So me liking Tom Brady has nothing to do with any sort of ATS record in the playoffs. Just like, he finished with the first losing season of his career. He struggled off losses for the first time. And like, there were a lot of things that were different about Tom Brady this year. So I would not blindly bet the Bucks just because of some Tom Brady trend from when he was in his prime dominating in New England.
Okay. As far as these other games and looking at spreads and totals, we have the DFS contest too, if you guys have thoughts there. But because I'm not just because you addressed a certain game over another doesn't mean you have interest in another game. But are you looking at the rest of the games, those other 4 games, Jeff, and you look at them and go, it's a pretty fair line. I don't know if I have a solid side or feeling on a side.
Yeah, I mean, right now, like obviously the San Francisco line was at, I think it opened at 8.5 or something, and if I could get the 49ers under 10, I would probably do that. I think that you're seeing some people now start to bet Seattle. which I kind of get once it gets over 10. I mean, Geno Smith's a very competent quarterback. We're just talking about keeping it close, you know? I mean, like, I think there's a lot of scenarios where the Seahawks get blown out, but 10 points is a lot. You're talking about a veteran coach, you know, much like, you know, the Steelers are good at keeping things close with Mike Tomlin. Pete Carroll has a pretty good record in some of these spots as well. So it's not really a team like I'm going, like a line that I'm going out to bet. I do like the 49ers at under 10, but that one, it kind of just feels like it is where it is. The one that's interesting to me still is the Bengals and the Ravens. I mean, I still like, it just feels, it feels very trappy, but at the same time, like, I just don't know how the Ravens or how the Bengals are only, it's up to 7 now, but it was at 6.5 for like a full day. I just don't know how this is only touchdown line. Like, there's so many things here with the Bengals. Like, they're slighted. You know, they got this divisional opponent who, you know, wants to try and play head games with them and stuff like that. And they feel like they've maybe been slighted by the league because they had to go out and like win just to maintain, like, to avoid a coin flip for home field advantage. I think that the Bengals are the most complete team in the NFL potentially right now. And for them only to get a touchdown against the Ravens team that, like, I think they haven't scored more than 20 points in 6 straight games now. And I think they've done it once in like 1 out of 9 games. And now, like, this Lamar Jackson just looks very doubtful. It just seems too low, but you know, the line hasn't really shot up or anything. There's a lot of money coming in on the Bengals. So I don't know. Right now the Cowboys and the Jags are probably, like, you know, the Cowboys under 3 I'm betting, and the Jags I'm almost certainly betting. And the other games are just kind of, I may just wait and see here and see if we get some line movement or something like that. Cause I don't really have a hard take on the rest.
I think the lesson is, everybody keep that in mind. You should have this in mind every week when you're on DraftKings or wherever you go, or whatever sports book you're on, or just be disciplined. If you don't like a spot, you don't have to play it, even though it is tempting. These are all standalone games. Lamarca knows that. Lamarca, when there's whatever, you know, early in the year when he was on fire, which he was on fire more than early in the year. He's not picking every game.
Definitely cooled off the past few weeks, but yes, I kept that stretch going for a good long time.
No wonder I haven't heard from you in weeks.
You haven't been here in weeks, Clash.
It's a little bit of both. Yeah, Lamarca, on these other games, you mentioned the Jags. Any other games here that you're like, I gotta wait and see still?
I'm with Jeff on San Francisco. I think they're just a wagon. Like, I have been riding San Francisco for the better part of 2 months. And really ever since Garoppolo got hurt, I've been on San Francisco, and they really haven't steered me wrong. You know, they had one close win against the Raiders, but basically every other game that they've played has been a thorough dismantling of the opponent. They are just so good at every position besides quarterback. And the Seahawks, I think, might be the weakest team in the playoffs right now. I mean, they just don't have very much going for them. So I think San Fran should be able to breeze past them. The most interesting game to me is the Giants and Vikings, right? Because these are 2 teams that Vegas has given, like, no respect all year.
Right.
And it's deserved, right? Both of these teams have negative point differentials for the year. The Vikings, we all know they're not as good as their 13-4 record. Their Pythagorean record is 8.4 and 8.6. So they've outperformed expectations by more than 4 wins this year. The Giants haven't been quite as bad, but they have just 8.3 expected wins compared to 9 actual. So I look at this and I say, like, I can't believe that the Vikings are only laying 3 points, because I just don't think the Giants are very good, right? Like, they have won these games, but none of their wins are impressive for the most part. Like, their wins are coming because they just have better coaching than I feel like most of the other teams in the league. And Daniel Jones, to his credit, I've given Daniel Jones a lot of hate over the years. He's done pretty well this season without much around him. These 2 teams played just a few weeks ago. The Vikings won by 3 points. They needed to hit a 61-yard field goal at the end of regulation. just to pull out that victory. So maybe this number is fair. The public, the sharps, they all seem to like the Giants this week.
Yep.
I just don't know how we're not laying a little bit more with Minnesota. For me, this is a game that I'm kind of staying away from right now. Like I have obviously been talking about the Vikings. I feel like basically since the start of the season, I have been recommending going against Minnesota, but it almost feels like now the pendulum might have swung in the other direction a little bit.
This line opened at, when they met week 16, the line opened at 5, and then the money came in on the Giants, and it closed at 3.5. So if you had the Giants, they did deliver, and the Giants were the most profitable team against the spread. Jeff, we talked about this game yesterday.
That's a really good point, Glash, because that was the opportunity to get on the Giants in this matchup at 5 or 4.5 or 4. Now the line is 3. It's not getting up to that again.
No way.
I completely agree. Like I almost, honestly, even if I can't get like 2.5 or something, I will bet the Vikings here. I think the Vikings are good for at least one win. And look, I mean, like we can, like the stats bear out. Yes, the Vikings are lucky. They also have the best wide receiver in football. Like they have a pretty solid coach who likes to pass. Like part of their luck is just that they have good players. It's kind of what elevated the Rams last year. So these teams can certainly go out and I think that the Vikings actually match up pretty well against weak opponents, especially like weaker secondaries. So I think this is actually a pretty good spot for the Vikings to get a dub. Yeah, I mean, I definitely want to try and get into the key number as you always should be, but I feel pretty good that the Vikings are going to win here. So yeah, I just don't. I mean, again, like just like we went over, I think that the Giants' path to victory is probably just like getting some pressure, like with Thibodeau in the middle there. The Vikings' rush defense isn't that bad. Yeah, their secondary is terrible, but like they're going up against like Richie James Jr., the super freak, and like Darius Slayton. So there's only so many yards they're going to be giving up this week. I think the Vikings probably pull this out. It may be ugly. It may even be like need like a late Kirk Cousins touchdown, but the Giants are willing. I mean, the Giants were willing against the Commanders. They gave up, they probably, they gave up big games. They've given up quite a few big games. They've had a really weak schedule, but you look at their secondary, like it hasn't really been good down the stretch. So I think the Vikings take advantage of that.
And the one nice thing about the Vikings and the way that they've won their games this year is, that if this game is close at the end, they're not going to be afraid, right? Like,
yeah,
they know that they can win games late because they have all year. So I think that while we use that like against them a lot during the regular season, that now becomes a positive for this team in the postseason.
Yeah, they can go down 33-0 and they can prove us.
I'd
suggest avoiding that, but
yeah.
But it's a good point. Like some of it's luck, some of it's resilience though too, man. Like you can't, you have to have some skill and be good at some parts of the game to come back from 33-0 against any team. So yeah, I think that pays off with at least one win here. And who knows, man? I mean, like I semi-called the Rams run last year lucky too, but they had a similar setup where they had holes in their team, in my opinion, and they just overcame it with a fantastic wide receiver and Matt Stafford. So
can I go on a quick aside about the Rams?
Yeah, sure.
I just want to say that I think Sean McVay is a coward. The fact that he came to Los Angeles, the team mortgaged their franchise to get him a Super Bowl, and now he's just like, you know what? I don't want to do this anymore. I'm going to retire. I think that's the coward's way out. It feels very Pete Carroll coming in.
Is that for sure?
I think apparently the thing that I heard today is he's allowing his assistants to go take jobs in other organizations. So like the writing is very clearly on the wall. But yeah, it reminds me of when Pete Carroll left USC after, the recruiting bans were coming down. And he just got out while he still could. That's exactly what this feels like to me. And he's a great coach, don't get me wrong, but it feels like this retirement of his is going to last for about a year until a team with a better situation comes. And
he's a little bit of a unique case because he's a younger guy. So, like I kind of get why, he'd want to take a couple years off, enjoy himself while he's still young, and then get back into it. But you're right. Like you don't see Mike Tomlin doing that, when the Steelers had trouble.
Jeff, LaMarcus' point is he has that luxury because he won a Super Bowl. He's so well respected. So he can do that. What you're saying, he can do that because he has been successful, right?
He couldn't coach my team.
It kind of feels like he doesn't want to put in, go.
Tomlin's a good example.
I think Tomlin's a really good example. I think there's a couple other examples out there too, but Tomlin's probably the best. Just sometimes winning with like bad teams is like more impressive. I mean, what Mike Tomlin has done, I can't even remember what the stat was. There was some crazy stat, but on Mike Tomlin that I read last week, it was really impressive though. But yeah,
I mean, how about the fact that he's never had a losing season? That's pretty impressive.
Maybe that was it. Maybe it was. I can't even remember. But anyways, it was something like that. So yeah, I would have liked to see McVay, stick around and maybe try and rebuild.
Yeah, roll your sleeves up a little bit, Sean. Don't be afraid to get your hands dirty.
Yeah, it's funny. LaMarca brings up Pete Carroll, but like Pete Carroll has been with Seattle for over a decade now. Everyone was writing off the Seahawks this year, and like, including me, like I said the Seahawks were stupid for siding with Wilson or for siding with Carroll over Wilson. I mean, I admit that 100%. Couldn't have been more wrong in my life. So, yeah, but Carroll stuck in. Now they're in the playoffs. Like, yeah, but I think that McVay is just a young guy and he wants a break, and he's got a Super Bowl. He can afford to do that. He can afford to do whatever he wants.
You good, LaMarca? You got that off your chest?
Yeah.
It's
while we're at it, Carlos Correa, good luck in Minnesota, buddy.
Oh my gosh, I forgot about that. See,
what a glorious Mets tenure it was.
Blame Tom Brady for letting that Madden sim at 4 go 1 hour and 45 minutes, and we would have been able to spend more time on that. But LaMarca, you're on again this week at some point, right? So you can talk about Correa.
Yeah, I'm back on Friday, usually with Jeff. I don't know if Jeff's going to be there on Friday as well, but we'll have a little bit more time to dive into some of these games.
Excellent. And of course, by Friday, we should have more practice reports, injury reports of some sort to follow, because most teams are back at practice tomorrow, and we'll go from there. So for Jeff Ulrich, Matt LaMarca, Daniel and Eamon, thanks to them for what they do behind the scenes. Brendan,
thanks for letting us go 5 minutes late today, guys. Appreciate it.
Yeah. I mean, there's no late Sims tonight, which I was kind of surprised by because I thought Tuesday there's no football to conflict with. But anyway, we'll take it and run with it. You'll have a great night. And our football coverage, the Super Wild Card Weekend coverage, will continue on The Sweat tomorrow at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. And then hopefully tomorrow, with these new overtime rules in the Madden world that reflect the NFL playoffs, hopefully tomorrow the show gets up and running on the earlier side, just after that 4 o'clock sim. Have a great night.